Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Hello, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about the Hulu docuseries Daughters of the Cult. And I'm exhausted. This is a 5-hour docuseries. It is good. It is disturbing.
Yeah, so trigger warning to anyone.
Yeah, it's about a polygamist cult. And there's two families in this documentary that are both directly related to Christine Brown.
Mm-hmm.
She is very, very close to these families. And in fact, one of the narrators of the series is this woman, Anna. I'm sorry, I didn't even write down her last name, but Anna, who is the daughter of like the evil protagonist in this story, Ervil LeBaron, she looks just like Christine. Did you see the pictures that someone put online, a picture of both of them on their wedding days? They look like twins. Not so much maybe now, but like when they were younger.
Yeah.
They look exactly alike. They showed a lot of pictures of Anna when she was a teenager and stuff. And so, yeah, they're like first cousins once removed.
Wow.
So it's a very close relationship.
And Christine has ties to both the families that are presented.
Correct.
She has ties to the LeBaron family and then the ties to Rulin family, who was her grandfather.
The Allred family.
Allred, sorry.
Yeah, so the docuseries is mostly about this family, the LeBaron family, who were a fundamentalist. They were the head of a fundamentalist
Mormon
religious cult. Yeah, primarily based in Mexico. And so there were, I don't know how many brothers, 8, 9 brothers, LeBaron brothers. One of the brothers is Florin LeBaron, who is Annie, Christine's mom. Her birth name is Ruth Ann LeBaron. That's her father. So Annie's uncle is the evil Ervil. His name's
because his name is very close to evil.
Yeah, you always want to say evil, and he is evil. His name is Ervil.
But there's an R in there.
So Ervil is Christine's great uncle. So that's her maternal side. And then on the paternal side, her grandfather is Rulon Allred, who was the prophet of the AUB church, the church that the Browns were in. Some of them, I don't know if they still are. And, which is also a fundamentalist Mormon polygamist cult that the Browns have tried to sanitize on the Sister Wives show. And I got very upset about this because I feel like they tried so hard to sanitize their church. Their church is involved in like horrible things. And in fact, Annie, Christine's mother, left the church she was part of a documentary many years ago, women who had left these polygamous cults. And she said her life was hell. She said she knew that if she left, she'd be going to hell, but her life was already hell.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the point?
And Anna's sister, Celia, says something very close to that as well in the documentary. Like, if this is already hell, so if I'm going to hell, then hey, at least I'll enjoy my life here. Exactly.
And Annie was talking about the amount of abuse and the secrecy and the... what other words was she using? She used the word abuse quite a bit.
It was abuse.
Yeah.
In so many different ways.
Yeah.
So many different ways.
So many different ways. I mean, I don't even know where to start. It's a very disturbing story. And all I could keep thinking about was just going back to Sister Wives. And it's like, oh my God. And Christine always acted like her childhood was wonderful. She even says that. I can remember multiple times her talking about how wonderful her childhood was. And it's like, really? Your mom had to leave, left like before you even graduated from high school because she couldn't take it anymore. I mean, what is going on? What alternate reality is Christine living in?
I don't know. I mean, what's interesting is the Sister Wives is really an answer to what was going on with Warren Jeffs and the FLDS, right? And so the Browns were supposed to be this, polygamy is okay, and it's not all FLDS. And then you hear these stories and you're like, well, you're not any better.
Right. You're fundamentalist.
Yeah. You're not any better than this person over here or this person over here. I mean, we have yet to hear about one of these groups that seems like a great place to be, especially for women and children.
Anyone who calls themselves a fundamentalist, anything, that's a red flag. Hello? I mean, fundamentalist Christian, fundamentalist Islam, fundamentalist is a bad word when it comes to...
And I don't even quite understand. I know what the definition of fundamental is, but when I hear fundamentals, I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What's the difference between a fundamentalist Mormon and a Mormon?
Well, the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, the traditional Mormon, they're not fundamentalists. So fundamentalist is like these offshoots of that. And I guess it means like, to me, it always means stricter, more radical, more severe. At least that's what I know about radical Christian and Muslim groups. They're that they're on the fringes in terms of their ideas and their activities and whatnot. So, and there have been many, 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 many reports from the AUB, the Browns church or former church, of all kinds of child abuse, child exploitation of children, and child labor. That comes up in this documentary as well. And it also came at Cody's nephew, that guy, Ben Brown.
And we talked about this on the podcast. I cannot remember how far back. I mean, this was an early episode. Sister Wives episode. We talked about this.
Yeah, he was on a pod. I heard him on a podcast talking about how, he basically was trafficked for child labor by his own family. He, was working just insane hours, not getting any sleep, really not going to school, not getting paid anything. And he escaped, he, as soon as he could, he just ran away from home. And that's what a lot of the girls in this documentary do as well. It's like, but first they have to realize they're in a cult, because they said that most of them, they don't know any other life. They don't know any other way. I don't think any of them were really going to school. I don't know how they could have gone to school. They were constantly moving around because this was a crime family. This was no different than the mafia. This was a crime family who was always running from the law and having to move from place to place. So I don't know how they ever got any sort of education.
Yeah. Because they were indoctrinated very young, being told that, you're the special ones, you're chosen. So it's like any other brainwashing or grooming that someone does, which is we're special, but no one understands us, and, be scared of cops and anybody in authority. They're out to get us, and using this idea that's hanging over their heads of, if you don't do this, then you are not celestial. and that means that you're going to go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me a lot of, what was it? Was it the, God, I can't remember, because I remember learning in high school that what always stuck out in high school history was old U.S. history was that just the belief that, I can't remember what religion it was, but this belief that you should suffer in this life and that once you get to heaven, you'll be rewarded. And this idea. And I'm thinking, God, they must have used these same tactics, like work really hard, don't be happy, don't question anything. Puritans, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, this idea. And what I think is so interesting is, even though we're years away from founding this country, we're still very much Puritans. We still kind of keep going back to this belief or this idea that you have to suffer in this life in order to, you know, get something on the other side, when in actuality, no one knows what's on the other side.
No, no one's come to report back. I mean,
yes. So we're all just believing what we've been told or what's been written down in somewhere.
Yeah.
And again, you know, as we see, Ervil was mentally ill. So it's of a madman, which he was. I mean, they called him the Mormon Manson. Yeah. Because he was a madman.
He was a criminal. Like I said, it was a crime family. And it probably worse. I feel like there was, you know, even the mafia seems to have some sort of code of code of conduct.
I'm just saying that the mafia, they don't believe. They're very like child abuse and child labor, and I don't know. Maybe if it's not right in front of them, maybe they don't care if it's something else. But the mafia has a stricter code. You wouldn't kill your brother in the mafia.
No.
Well, wait.
Well,
Godfather. He did. Yeah, I guess if you betray him.
Fredo. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I take that back. But I don't know. Yeah, it's all bad. The mafia is bad. These damn polygamous sects are bad. And
I feel like this is a little bit worse than the mafia right now. I'm sorry.
But if you're on a Tinder date with someone and they tell you fundamentalist anything, run.
Yeah.
Just FYI, if you take nothing else from this podcast, someone says that to you, it is not going to be good. But
yes.
All right. So where do we begin? Because it's a lot happens.
It's a lot of information. So we have the LeBaron family. Starts with them. I mean, the whole thing really is about them.
It's really the story. When we hear daughters of the cult, I think we're referring to Anna and Celia, who are both daughters, different moms, right? But both the daughters of Ervil, and we hear a lot from them. They narrate the whole thing, but we also hear from one of their stepsisters, Faye, and we hear from Adine, who's another daughter, and we hear from Hiram. I love Hiram.
I know, he's so
Poor
sweet.
Little Hiram, such a sensitive little soul, and I think that and we hear from him. And that's the LeBaron family. And then we also hear from some of the Allred family, their kids, Rulin's children, and then the children of, and I cannot remember how to pronounce the name of Mark.
Oh, it's Dan. No,
not Dan.
Not
it's
Dan.
Mark and Lillian.
Mark and Lillian.
How do you say their last name?
I don't know.
Oh, God. But if you watched it, you know who we're talking about, Mark and Lillian. So we meet, there's a son or two in there, but it's mainly the daughters. The daughters of Ervil.
They are the two main ones, Anna and Celia, Ervil's daughters. So this LeBaron family, they are part of, we've talked about this, a lot of polygamists, when they outlawed polygamy in Utah, went to Mexico. I guess it was a safe place for them. A lot of these people we meet were born in Mexico. Celia, I know, was born in Mexico. And they had this, they called it the LeBaron colony. And it was very primitive. You know, they had no running water, no electricity. You know, they were pretty poor. And Ervil and his brother Joel founded this church. They basically made it up out of whole cloth, called Church of the Firstborn of the Fullness of Times.
Yes, the fullness of times.
Fullness of times.
I'm like, where do they come up with these names?
I don't know.
Anyway,
literally just made up. And somehow they decided that Joel was the chosen prophet.
Yes, just like that.
Just like
that. Interesting.
I still don't really know how that happened. And I want to say, listeners, we're going to get a lot of stuff wrong. We're going to get a lot of facts wrong, but we were really trying. Again, it's 5 hours, a lot of information. And so we did the best we could. Anyway, they go through introducing us to a lot of family members, and Ervil was he was really like the talker. He was good looking. He was good at converting people.
Yes. You know what he looked like? He looked like a young Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote down. And for you Gen Xers, you know who Matt Dillon is. If you're younger, you might have to look him up. But he was very cute. But he had that sort of confidence, that swagger.
Right.
And so Joel, I think, was the more pragmatic one.
More intellectual.
Yeah. And so he played the sort of CEO role, the head role. And Ervin was sort of like the COO, or like he was second in command. And that was and he was good at converted people. And Ervil really enjoyed power. And while these poor kids had nothing, he's driving up in a gold car, and this nice, shiny gold car. And so then suddenly Ervil, who did not like being second in command, started having revelations. Isn't that convenient?
Yeah. He was supposed to be the prophet.
Second, because he was like, wait, I'm number 2. I don't like this.
Yes.
So that's when, but Ervil, I guess, was already starting to, commit some violent acts and committing what they call blood atonement.
Yeah, he believes, so what happens is there's a split. So half the people, Joel gets excommunicated by Ervil from this Church of the Firstborn of the Fullness of Times. But some of the followers go with Joel, and they call them Joelites. And then Ervil starts his own church with just 125 followers, and those are the Ervilites.
Yes, and they form the Church of the Lamb of God. And I just have to laugh because one of my husband's favorite bands is called Lamb of God.
Oh, well,
yes.
Maybe that's the origin of...
maybe. I have to find out from him.
Yeah. So this Ervil's new church is into this thing called blood atonement, which is to atone for an eternal sin, the sinner should be killed so that their blood can hit the ground as a sacrificial offering. Now, is this another made up thing, or is there any basis for this in any religion anywhere?
I think it's made up, but we could be wrong.
Yeah.
But it feels real made up because it also feels like back to the mafia, just as the mafia has very strict rules about who gets killed for what and when. And when you step out of line of that, I guess this is one of the differences with the mafia is it's very, very clear in the mafia what is going to get you killed. And if you step out of line, that's it. I think what's with these fundamentalist religious groups, it's sort of like it's whatever the leader thinks and feels in that moment in time. Oh, you did this wrong. Oh, you did this wrong. Bad, 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 bad.
Yeah, I think it is a real thing because I Googled it to make sure I had the definition of it right. And it came, all these definitions came up right away. So I think it has some basis in some scripture. But anyway, so Ervil is just... everything he does, it just turns very violent very quickly. He starts amassing a large number of guns, like he's making a militia. And then we are introduced to this guy, Dan Jordan. And he's like 42 years old, and he marries this girl, Faye, who's one of the narrators. And she's 15.
Yeah. Yeah. Good times. And he marries 2 women on the same day. He marries her and another stepsister.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? And they're flipping a coin.
Ervil gave her to Dan. Yeah. Along with her stepsister.
Yes.
Whew.
And she's so worried about having to like sleep with him on the wedding night that she's grateful that it's her stepsister has to take it for the team. I'm thinking to myself, well, this doesn't change anything. Tomorrow will come, Faye.
Well, I mean, one more night of peace.
I guess so. But yeah, it's oof.
Yeah. So at this point, this is like the early 70s. Now they're kind of moving all over Mexico, because now I have in my notes, now they're in Ensenada, Mexico.
Well, so in 1972, so Ervil decides, okay, I don't like that Joel's out there. And I don't like that he's got all these followers, because I think more followers stayed with Joel, but his were more radical. So they decide, okay, we need to kill Joel's followers. And in 1972, Joel is lured away, and from the followers are lured away, and Dan and some henchmen beat him up and then shoot him. So they killed Joel. And so Ervil is already like a wanted man. He's running from the law. That's why he's staying in Mexico and constantly moving around. And that's when the kids all got in that moving truck and moved up to Denver.
Oh, yeah. That was horrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had 3 wives, 20 children living in a 1,500 square foot house, and they're in hiding. So they can't even leave. They have to stay inside with the blinds closed. And then I don't remember what precipitated this, but I have here, Ervil went to the police station and they put him in jail and put him on trial. What? He just voluntarily walked in there?
I guess so. I mean, so he goes on trial, and then he's convicted, and then the conviction is overturned by a technicality, which basically they're sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink that he bribed somebody.
This is still in Mexico. He's still in Mexico, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, but then Verlin is now the prophet.
Yes. He takes over for Joel.
Yeah. And now they're in El Molinos, Mexico.
Yes.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And so the Los Molinos, that massacre, that was the massacre of Verlin's group. So he then wants to massacre. He's just killing off brothers.
Yeah.
Like anybody that's bigger than him, better than him, he's taken out. Yeah.
They like set a bunch of, I don't know if there was an explosion. They set the compound buildings on fire. 2 died. 24 structures they burned down. But Verlin wasn't even there. Gosh.
Yes. And then this leads into, then we're introduced to Rulin Allred, Christine's grandfather. And so he was in Salt Lake City, and he had a following that really rivaled Ervil's, and he didn't like this, and he didn't like it at all. So he decides that he's going to get Rena, who is his 13th wife.
Well, yeah, we have to explain. So Rena and Ramona. Okay. Yeah. So Ramona's married to Dan Jordan. Rena is Ervil's youngest wife at 16, but he started pursuing her when she was 12 and sexually assaulted her. That's what she said. So basically, Ervil's grooming Rena and Ramona to be killers, because he never killed anyone himself.
Yes.
He just, recruited other people to do it and groomed them. And yeah, he said that Rulin had to go, and Rena and Ramona were going to kill him. So go ahead about.
Rulin. Yeah. Well, so they were groomed to kill him, and so Rulin, he basically, Rena and Ramona, they just went into his office, walked right up. Ramona froze, Rena didn't, and shot Rulin point blank, bang, 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 and then ran off. And so now this is happening in Salt Lake City, like it's getting investigated by the police, and now Rena and Ramona are on the run. Yeah, and the reason why was because Allred, again, Christine's grandfather, he had like 12,000 followers, and they thought that they could just come in and kill him and take his followers, which I don't really think it works that way, but that was why he was doing it. Not a great plan. No. Yeah. And then the women, I mean, they carried it out. They did. They did what they were told. Although later it came back to haunt them, but we'll get to that. And then we get into this whole thing about sort of like what Celia and Anna's life was like. So they're in Mexico at this colony. They maybe travel a little bit in Mexico. They're then put in all these kids are sort of taken up to the US, and they are then required in Denver to work something like 16 hours a day, 6 days a week.
12 hours a day.
12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then after, when they got off their shifts at 9:00 at night, these poor kids, and these aren't like 15-year-olds. Like, these are 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. I mean, this is really young. They then have to go dumpster diving.
Yeah, well, they worked at this place. It was called Michael's Appliance Repair, and it was run by Dan Jordan. And so at this point, Dan Jordan is like Ervil's right-hand man. He's his henchman. And he's just a total asshole. And while these kids are basically providing slave labor, he's yelling at them like, you stupid, lazy motherfuckers, you better get to work, and you're moving too slow. And so this was their life. Yeah, these little kids, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So obviously none of them are going to school, and they're not even being homeschooled.
Because if you're doing 12 hours a day and you're getting off at 9:00, that means they're working from 9 to 9. And then they're going dumpster diving for, food and other things. And then going into the Goodwill box to get clothes and just pray that there's clothes that fit you. And what I thought was really interesting was that and this is the thing, especially as a woman and as a child, you're not supposed to have any feelings. You're not supposed to have thoughts or feelings about anything.
You just obey.
Yeah. And if you feel sorry for yourself, they tell you, like, feeling sorry for yourself is the first step to insanity. And insanity means that you are possessed by the devil or you're bad. And what I think is so interesting about that is it's so interesting, some of their plans are ridiculous, but some of these other things are pretty damn smart, because you're like, the first step when you think about feeling sorry for yourself, or when you really, what feeling sorry for yourself is, you're reflecting upon how you're feeling. And so they tie this in. The moment you have any sort of reflection of self, well, that's bad. That's insanity. And insanity to a kid feels very scary.
Yeah.
And then you say devil. So don't ever reflect upon anything. Don't ever feel your feelings. Don't ever do that. So
Ervil, they know, the FBI knows that Ervil is behind the killing of Rulon. And so, he's on the FBI's most wanted list. And so I have on here, this is 10 years after the Manson murders.
Well, that's when they dubbed him, because because that murder happened in Salt Lake City, and that was really prominent. It got a lot of news coverage, and that's when they started calling him the Mormon Manson.
Right. So someone else is dumpster diving, and they oh wait, no, this comes later.
Yeah, that's when they find the gun.
When they find the gun.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have here at Rulon's funeral, Ervil thinks that Verlin will be in attendance. Yeah, that's what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
They show up with guns, but there's too many police there, because the police know that.
Yeah, this is Ervil's coming.
Going on.
But the thing was, it alarmed them because, 10 years earlier were the Manson murders, and they were so worried about like multiple murders happening, that's why they had the police there. Yeah, bad press for Salt Lake City and Mormonism.
It's going to kill tourism.
Yes. And so there's more, there's so many different stories. They talk about one of Ervil's daughters, Rebecca, his oldest daughter. She, she starts to have problems and starts to complain a little, and she disappears. And that was sort of what these children were living under all the time, which is, if you do complain, if you do push anything, suddenly you're no longer around.
Well, they said she had mental health issues, and they were afraid that she was going to tell someone, because of the mental health issues, it was interfering with their ability to control her and to brainwash her.
Well, and what we learn later is, and we don't ever get a formal diagnosis for Ervil, but it does seem like Ervil has some kind of, and I don't know if it's nature versus nurture, if he drew, you start teaching these insane, crazy things and you start believing it. And did that make him, mentally ill once he got to jail or prison, or was he always mentally ill? Because if he had a pretty serious mental illness, then it wouldn't surprise me that a lot of his children got it too. Like these things are highly genetic.
Yeah.
So, but I also wonder when they said she had mental illness, I'm like, I wonder if she just was, had a thought or a feeling. You know what I mean? It was just like question something.
I don't know what she did, but she was 17 and expecting her second child, and they just killed her.
Yeah, just like.
And so that's when, like, Anna and Celia were talking about this because it was very disturbing to them because they just thought, well, if he can just kill his own child, no problem, and nobody's even looking for her. Well, they don't know for sure. He didn't announce that he killed her, but that was the assumption because no one's looking for her. Mm-hmm. No one's talking about her. She just disappears one day.
Yeah. And they can get away with it too.
Right.
That's the other thing and that's very, very scary.
Yeah.
And they talk about that. Like women are not allowed to think for themselves. They were not allowed to have an original thought. And I think that's, when you watch these documentaries, it's really easy to get into that headspace of like, what's wrong with them? Like, why wouldn't you just run? Why don't you go to the authorities? And that's this isolation that we see so often in all of these. The more you isolate someone, the more they don't have, this is all they knew, that this is what the world was.
And when they get to the age where they can understand, like, okay, well, maybe I can leave, but then what will happen to you if you get caught.
Yeah.
So, like Anna left when she was she 15, 16? Something like anyway.
Down. 13. She was 13.
Oh, 13. Okay. So all these girls leave at some point. But they have to go through that mental process of am I willing to risk getting caught leaving and or is this worse to stay here? And and you have to decide.
Yeah.
So it's so awful.
Yeah. So then we get the next major thing that I see here, which is Rena does come back. So she's on the run and then she comes back, but they're told just call her Patty. And that's another thing that would disturb you too. Like, now we're just calling her Patty. And Celia and Anna talk a lot about this. Like they didn't realize it at the time, but all of this moving around was they were running from the law. Mm-hmm. They went to living in 10 different houses and all this stuff before she even
was 10 years old.
Yeah. So then Ervil's first wife and his son, Isaac, they do something very, very brave, which is they go to the police and they reveal who murdered Rulin. And they talk about the Los Molinos murder. So in 1977, the FBI raid their house again. This is...
Which house? Is this the house where the 20 kids were living?
Yeah, the house in Denver. So they raid the house. And this is the one where Hiram, he lets them in. He's 6 years old. So there's banging on the door. He gets up in a cloud of, sleepiness.
It's like the middle of the night.
Yeah. Opens the door and all of a sudden, here you are, just a bunch of kids being raided by the FBI. I think that's scary for anyone. But here the FBI is raiding the house. And that's what Hiram says, is that he felt so guilty. He felt responsible for so long because he was the one that opened the door.
So I'm confused because in my notes, I say that the kids were then taken back to Mexico. Why didn't the kids? So when they raid the house, were they just looking for Ervil and didn't find him? So they just left everybody there? Or I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. It was very strange. I think they came in and they found Rena because Rena was there. Mm-hmm. So they got her. And was this the one where they, the Dan Jordan thing, or was?
Yeah. So they go to another house
at the same
close by at the same time, and they find Ervil there, and he admits, I'm Ervil LeBaron, and they don't believe him. Mm-hmm. This is in Mexico. These are the federales. This isn't the FBI.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So much happens in this. I'm telling you. I apologize to anybody if you're frustrated with us.
Because they're continually on the run. They're continually going from state to state to Mexico, back to the US to Mexico. They're just all over the place.
Yes.
So this all happens when they're in Mexico.
Okay.
So they find Ervil. He says, "Yeah, it's me." The police don't believe him because they've heard about him as being this,
charismatic,
tall, handsome man. And apparently he didn't look that good. He, was just looked like this pathetic person, couldn't possibly be a charismatic cult leader.
Yeah.
And so they didn't believe it. And so they left. And then they go and they find Dan, and they ask Dan if he's Ervil. And Dan says yes, because he has to. And then they realize that no, Dan is not Ervil. And in the meantime, Ervil has escaped. And, he's gone now. So they messed that up.
Yes. But this all happened because because of this murder in Salt Lake City, I guess the FBI were trying to work with the Federalists and telling them, like, this guy's bad news. Like, you don't want him.
Yeah. And that was the thing about the Manson connection. They were saying, you basically got a Charles Manson type cult right here in your backyard in Mexico, and you don't need that.
Yeah.
You don't want this person. So help us find him, and we'll take him. We'll meet you at the border, and we'll take him back.
But they do. Yeah. Yeah. It's so crazy. And so, let's see.
So then this is around the time when Mark and Lillian come into the picture.
Yeah.
And okay, so Mark is Rena's brother. And Rena, I don't know where she is. She's
taken into custody. Rena's taken into custody. They find her from that. They meet her. They take her over, and she's now in custody. And there's Rena, Mark, and Eddie Marston, and Victor, who is also related to Mark.
I think Eddie is a half sibling or something of somebody's. Anyway,
they all are on trial for these murders in the U.S. in Salt Lake City for the murder of Rulon.
For the murder. Okay. So I know. And none of them get convicted.
Yeah. So there's talk of jury members being intimidated.
Right.
That jury members did say that they thought someone was following them, and you just need one person, and that's it. Though everyone always says you just need one person, but really you need one person for a fault for a mistrial. You need all 12
to get acquitted. To get acquitted, you need all 12 people to say not guilty.
Yes,
so not exactly correct. But and then Lillian is the half sister of somebody.
Yeah,
I don't know. And
it's very confusing who it is.
They turn out to be, good people later on. But
and then we get this whole thing. I think what happens there is, so by this point now, Anna and Celia are back in Denver. Because we hear...
and everyone returns to Colorado. And they go back to the appliance thing. And basically, Dan is in charge. I don't know where is Ervil back in Mexico?
Ervil, yes. He's still on the run in Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they go back to the appliance thing because I guess they feel like they can. Things have settled down. And this was this horrible thing where Dan promises all the kids that if they work really hard all summer, then at the end of the summer, he'll give them $50 to buy school clothes.
And $50 each. And that is in the late 70s, early 80s. And that's a lot of money.
It was more money than they had ever known.
Or even fathomed.
Anna said that they used to have to, they would give the wives like $20 a month to buy food for their family.
Yeah.
That's why they were dumpster diving and stuff. Yeah. So that's a lot of money. And of course, the end of the summer comes and he says, oh no, I don't have the money. And then his daughters show up with like all new school clothes.
And Anna's livid. And I think, again, this is where these cults and these cult leaders, they make mistakes, because I get why Dan, he wanted to incentivize them, right, to do that, which is, but the thing is that when you renege on these things, when you pull it back, that pissed Anna off. And I think what she was starting to see was, wait a second here. I can't, because basically their whole thing is, these cult leaders, they always say, you need to trust me and not other people. But when you start lying to them, then they're not going to trust you anymore. So, and that's what happened with Dan. How do you believe anything? Even though he was awful and abusive and terrible, if this awful abusive person, if you're told to believe in them and then they lie to you to your face, it starts to erode things a little bit. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it might not seem like a big deal to most people, but it's, like to her it was. It was just like.
I'd be livid.
Because her life is so, God, their life is just so awful. Ugh. But they don't even know it. Because they just don't know anything. They don't know what's happening in the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, finally, the federales do catch up to Ervil.
Well, yeah, because I think this is 78, 79, because
right after Jonestown.
I was going to say that was the other big thing. So Jonestown happens, and now the even more so, it's like, we really got to find this guy.
We don't want
this is a problem.
Jonestown here.
Yeah.
So they get him. I can't remember how, but they find him. They take him to the border, hand him over to the FBI. The FBI talks to him for like 5 hours, but he won't talk about Rule and Allred. And he goes on trial. And
in 1980,
Isaac, who is is it his son? Yeah,
his son.
Son Isaac. And Isaac, didn't we say earlier Isaac and his mom had gone to the FBI?
So they were the key witnesses. Yeah. Can I just go back to something for real quick? You know what I think is really interesting is how quickly the Federalists found Ervil. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit like, I think they always knew where he
was paying them off.
Yeah,
and
I think
it got to a point where that wasn't worth the money anymore.
Yeah, I was just like, that was the big thing, was like, it just wasn't worth it to them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Isaac testifies against Ervil. He's found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder of Rulon Allred, and he's sentenced to life in prison. Finally.
And so, God. And so Ervil, but they think, okay, this is it. Boom. Prison. Okay. I don't know why everyone thought they were so naive. You know, people rule from prison. And they knew that. Like, lots of people rule from prison.
The mafia.
Yes, exactly. So I don't quite why they thought everything should end. That but that this is where his mental illness really started to come out, because prior to this, we learned that apparently he was like writing letters to Jimmy Carter and Mondale, asking them that they should tithe to him. So what's Carter going to do? Oh, I'll give you 10% of my yearly salary as president. Sure, no problem.
Some random cult leader.
Yeah.
What a weirdo.
So, and so what happened from that was that, and so Ervil really wanted his followers to bust him out of prison. They were like, I need to get out here. You need to bust out. And they realized, like the higher ups, Mark and Dan and such, they were like, this is a suicide mission. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't do that. And so that really pisses Ervil off, and he starts to create this hit list. And we'll get back to the hit list later because that comes into play. But he starts to these crazy writings and yellow legal pads and just the writings of a madman.
Because people aren't following his orders anymore either.
Yes. Yeah. But it also, him being in prison, and I think that they were getting this information from him. And I think it's almost like people kind of split a bit, where the people that had a sense, some sort of sense inside of them could see, oh, we got to get out of this. Mm-hmm. Like, this is
our
crazy.
Chance.
This is, this is our chance. This guy's, and look at these madmen writings, and we got to go. And that's when, Dan, so that's when they started to back away. And that's when Mark and Lillian kind of really decided to break away and really felt like, okay, we got to get as far away from this as we can.
Yeah, because Mark was going to visit him in jail, and Ervil would give him all these writings, because all he did all the time was write things, like all day long in prison, write out these revelations and orders and instructions to people. And then he would give them to Mark, and Mark would sneak them out and give them to whoever he's supposed to give them to. So Mark was reading these letters, presumably, and saw how bizarre and violent and whatever they were. And so, yeah, I think he knew that it was time to get away from these people.
Yes. So Ervil wants to blood atone Dan and Mark. I love this. Blood atone you. Like, just. And then this is really interesting. Kind of a la Jeffrey Epstein. In 1981, Ervil's found dead in his prison cell. He's 56 years old, and they're quote unquote unsure of how he died. You know, did someone kill him? Was it a suicide? It's very bizarre because it looked like his throat had been. Someone thought that he punched himself so hard in the throat that it choked him. It's like, can you kill yourself that way?
I don't know.
That was weird.
They said the official cause was a heart attack, but I don't know. But
it's very suspicious.
What I did think was really sad was that Anna and Celia, after they talk about how he died in prison, they get kind of sad because they said they thought that they could still maybe have a real relationship with their father someday. And I was just like, what? Yeah. And, Anna talks about, I think she only saw him one time in her life. She talks about the first time she ever saw him, that she saw him as a baby. But the first time that she can remember seeing him, he came to her house when they were in Denver or something. She was like 9 years old. And she still at that time, like, just saw him as she admired him and saw him as this, wonderful figure. And really, you thought that even, that was weird.
But I think because he was talked about so much, he was talked about and revered. I bet you anything that he felt so unique and special to them. So, and maybe they felt more special because they were, his daughters. I don't know. He had 51 kids or 50 plus kids. So,
yeah, I don't know.
But that's what Hiram says too, where he says that Dan Jordan, even though he was horribly abusive, was the only father figure he ever knew. And he wanted to please him, so that's the same thing. Anna wanted to please Ervil.
All right. So they took all of Ervil's revelations that he wrote on, yellow legal pads, and they were published in a book. It was called The Book of New Covenants. And in this book is his hit list for 50 people, that he wanted killed.
Oh my God. And it's so funny too, because the minute someone said no, that's it, you're on the list. You like
to piss me off, you're putting you on the list.
Like, I didn't like my dinner tonight. You're on the list.
Yeah. So the only people stupid enough to take up this list were a bunch of teenagers, teenage children of his and converts. I don't know who these people were, who kept following him, and they took up the revelations and called themselves the Kingdom of God, and they were basically teenagers with guns.
Yes.
And
yes. So now there's almost like there's three sects. There's three groups of all these people that we're talking about, which is we've got Dan Jordan's group, and then we've got Mark and his group, and then we've got Arturo, who was the oldest son, who became the successor when Ervil went to jail and then later died. And he sort of ran it like
a mafia
mafia don. Yeah. And they made money mainly through stealing cars in the U.S. and bringing them down to Mexico and reselling them or chopping them up. And they were working with the narcos. And so one of the followers, so this is what happens when you give a bunch of people guns, is eventually one of the followers kills Arturo. And so the next in line after that is Heber. And Heber, I guess, Anna and Celia said that he was always this sweet kid, very gentle, that he was, he didn't start evil, but he also really was, a drug user, not in his right mind, a partier. I don't know if Heber ever really wanted to be in charge, but he got a little bit of a taste of power. And, he starts running this the same way, with this iron fist. And it's probably even more violent than when their father was running the place.
Yeah. So it's chaos down in Mexico because that's where all these young boys are. But meanwhile, Anna is living in Houston with her mom, and she was happy. But then Dan Jordan showed up again. And I guess Mark was changing his ways. He was like, I'm getting out of this. And he, kind of started taking care of Anna and her mom and other people who were living around there. And I guess Dan told Anna's mom that, they had to go back to Denver with him. And Anna was just like, I can't. She's like, I just can't go.
Yeah. Well, surprise, surprise, for Michael's appliance, it collapsed because there was no more kid labor.
Right.
So basically, I think that Dan got the bright idea of, oh, crap, I'm not making any money anymore because I don't have all this free labor. And all the kids are in Houston. So he convinces Anna's mom that he's the new prophet, that he needs to come, that they need to come and follow him to Colorado. And
because there's more kids there. The kids in Houston have dried up, I guess. So, so Anna calls Lillian and says, I cannot go with them. And Lillian says, just start walking to my house. And so she walked out of the house with the clothes on her back, started walking to Lillian's house, got into her car, went into hiding. Lillian put her in a motel room. And so her mom was looking for her, couldn't find her. And she just left. Left town with...
she was like, okay, well, she's gone.
Yeah. And I guess it's probably not that uncommon, when these kids get to a certain point, it's not the first person to do that. So Anna moved in with Lillian and Mark, and this is when she realized she was in a cult.
Yes.
She didn't realize it up until this point.
Well, that's when she finds the book. She finds
that's right.
Putting away laundry one day and finds a book about Ervil, and she starts reading, and it's like, oh my God, my father's this evil man. He murdered people, and we're all in a cult. And so things start to come together for her.
So meanwhile, back in Mexico,
down in Mexico, things are getting crazier.
Heber is training kids as young as 6 to shoot guns and start killing people. They start just randomly killing people on the ranch who they think were involved in Arturo's killing. Women are being trafficked and raped. I mean, it's just, someone described it as Mad Max meets Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. It's like nobody has a moral compass.
No. And this Heber guy is just a sociopath.
So he then kills his brother. So Heber, I guess, kills his brother Andrew for something that Andrew did or did not do. But it turned out that Andrew was the best mechanic they had.
Yeah.
And they needed Andrew.
For the auto ring.
Again, these ruthless killers, not good businessmen.
Dumb.
Because I will also tell you, in the mafia, I'm not really promoting the mafia, but in the mafia, and I learned this from The Sopranos.
They have lots of jobs.
But in The Sopranos, what Tony Soprano would always say is he's a good earner.
Yeah.
He's a good earner. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to let this guy go because he's making me lots of money. And so this is what this group did not quite understand, that if you have someone who's a linchpin in your system, you better find a replacement before you kill them.
So don't kill your best mechanic. It's like,
and that was their main source of income. So everyone's like, well, Heber, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're not good. So they make him step down and they have Aaron come in to fill in, and he's 19 years old at the time. And he's very different than Heber because he's much more serious and quiet, but much more religious.
Mm-hmm.
So what Ervil was able to do was Ervil was really able to use the scripture and all of that to lure people in, to get a hold of them. And Aaron was able to do that as well. So
yes. So
now he's in charge.
So their next victim is Dan Jordan, because he's on the hit list.
Yes.
They're just going down the list.
Yeah, they've got to go back to the hit list. So they're like, okay, who's number one? Is it Dan?
It probably was. They got sidetracked with killing this Andrew. I don't think Andrew was on the list.
No, Andrew wasn't on the list.
That was just for shits and giggles, you know. Like,
yeah, no, Andrew probably mouthed off to him or something. I mean, really, literally, if you're killing people just for doing one thing, you know,
exactly,
it's unreal.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, so Dan is not doing great. He doesn't have any money, and so he puts these people, including Celia, on what he calls the mission field, who are going door to door to try to convert people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so they wanted to get more converts for Dan. So Celia went back. She said that she was much more, she's a few years older than Anna. So she was about 16 when she went from Houston back to Denver. And so she very much was like very proud of this honor, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm representing them. And, but she wasn't doing a very good job of getting converts. I don't know why. And so she was told that she wasn't celestial enough.
Yeah.
And that she, she couldn't do this anymore. But apparently there was one night where, one time where they're having a meeting talking about, converts and how do we get people. And Dan made an offhand remark. And I think Celia just sort of laughed at it or dismissed it or something.
Yeah,
I still don't understand quite what she did. She laughed at it. She didn't understand what it meant, but she laughed at it. And then she was awoken by her mother and another mom and given 20 lashes
each.
And
each. Yeah.
Yeah. And they told her, you're not good. You can't do this anymore. You don't get to do this door to door thing anymore, and no school.
Yeah. And she was
really devastated.
She just was in her senior year or something. And she was really, because I'm sure a lot of these people did not graduate from high school, and she was about ready to graduate from high school. And that was very important to her. She was very proud of that. And they said, no, can't go back to school. You're just going to have to go to work, earn money for the family. And then they beat her. And then that was her breaking point.
Yes.
That was it for her. She, and actually her mom just kind of told her to go, I think.
Yeah.
She said, just go, you're not, that was weird.
Well, I think the mom kind of knew already, like, this is not good, but I can't get out. So let me try to get my kids out.
And she had a sister who had already left. Yeah.
So in Mexico, what happens is, and I have to say, under Aaron's leadership, they actually had some pretty good plans. You got to give them some credit for that, which is...
Well, wait. Can we finish something else out here?
Sure.
Because, okay, so Celia called her sister who had left the cult. Her sister sent her a plane ticket. She left a note for her mom and her sister, Adine and Hiram. And Hiram gets very emotional, saying that, he didn't know if he'd ever see her again. It was very sad. She moved in with her sister and her sister's husband in Houston. And then she was reunited with Anna. And the two of them actually got to graduate high school together.
That's right.
Celia's almost 20. Anna was 17. And they were in some small religious school. There were only two people in the senior class. But they got to graduate.
But they got to graduate. Yeah.
So that's, for such a dark documentary, that was like one of the bright spots. So I just thought I'd make sure we get something happy in here.
No, you're right.
But anyway, okay. So then Aaron and a bunch of kids show up at Dan's house. And this is part of a plan, right? I mean,
yes. Yeah, actually, and a pretty smart plan where they basically say, hi, Dan, we're a bunch of kids. We don't, Mexico's insane. We're not happy. Take us in and we'll work for you. And Dan, is so greedy. He kind of, like, Dan always carried a gun with him because he knew he was on that hit list,
right.
and he knew he was in trouble. But I think that he was skeptical of these kids, but it was like, they poked an area where it's like, oh, I could make money off of them. So he gets them to go to work, and I don't know how long they're there, but Dan does this big deer hunt every year, and it's a big deal. Like, all the kids go, and it's very exciting. And basically, I think they must have used knowing that he had this deer hunt, they used that as a time to isolate him and get him away. And so Dan, one day, at the deer hunt, he has to pee. He puts his gun down for the first time and goes off to pee, and he's shot.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and then the police come, and but the thing is, everybody's accounted for. So it's like, well, who shot him? What happened here? They were suspicious of Aaron right away, but they didn't have any evidence, to prove that he had done anything at all. So they've managed to kill Dan. That's number one. Check.
Yeah.
Cross that off.
He's off. Cross him off the list.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then Mark. And then Mark's brother, Dwayne, and then this guy, Eddie, who's
Eddie Marston.
Eddie Marston. He's the half brother of somebody. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, they're all on the hit list.
Yes, they are.
So they're next. So
and so they say, why not? If we're going to kill people, let's do it 3 at a time.
Well, this was actually turned out to be a pretty good
brilliant
plan. Yeah.
I have to say, this Aaron, he's crazy and insane, and we shouldn't follow him, but you got to give him some, he's a smart criminal. Yeah.
So all 3 of these guys owned appliance repair shops. And so what they did is they set it up to act like they had some appliances to sell, or just old appliances to sell or something. And so they lured Eddie and Dwayne out of the shop. Mark was still in the shop. They lured Eddie and Dwayne to separate locations to go supposedly meet some person to buy appliances. And one of them was it Eddie or Dwayne?
Dwayne
had a
Jennifer.
6-year-old daughter in the car. She just came along for the ride. And so they get to the spots where they're supposed to meet these people. And then these trucks pull up and block them in. And then at the same time, this all happens at the same time. It's 4:00. They call them the 4:00 murders.
On June 27th. And that's very significant.
Yes. Because of June 27th, on some date in the past, at 4:00 is when Joseph Smith was killed.
In the jail. And we learned all by the Angry Mod. We learned that on Sister Wives.
Sister Wives, the Browns went there. Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, they're all killed at the same time by 3 separate people who come out with guns, and they're all dressed alike. They all have the same kind of disguise on, like a beard and a same color suit. So that way, if any eyewitnesses saw them, they would all give the same description, so they wouldn't know. Wait a minute, who killed who and whatnot. So, and then unfortunately, the 6-year-old also gets killed because she's just there. And they just shoot her point blank. I mean, these people are just ruthless killers. So
everybody's on high alert.
Yes. And it's, and Lisa and Emily are Mark's daughters, who we now see as adults. And Anna used to take care of them when she lived with them. And, let's see.
Well, we meet them and we get to know them, and they talk about their parents and Mark. And, I think they were both, 10 and something, 10 and 12, pretty young, where they just all of a sudden they find out their father's dead and they all have to like run. Everyone has to run.
They went into witness protection program. Lillian and the daughters, they went into protection.
Because Lillian was on that list too, I would believe,
probably,
right?
I'm sure.
Yeah. So, and then we meet Adine, who's one of the other daughters. She talks about like her mom was on the hit list and they were all given guns. And they said, you know, every time your mom opens the door, aim to shoot whoever's at there. I mean, just craziness.
Yeah, everyone assumed that they could be on the list. You know, they all thought that they could be killed at any time. So,
yeah,
it was terrorizing.
And then the Houston area. So I guess this group, they're still in the Houston area, and the police find the 3 men who committed these murders because they had found a bunch of stolen cars that they had stolen. And so they arrest the 3 men who were the 3 killers. But the problem was that because they looked alike and no one could place who murdered whom, when, you know, they could not convict them on the murders because you have to convict them for what they did.
Yeah. So they got a tip. They found these were all these kids from Mexico, and they were all hanging out in some motel in Phoenix, and they had all the stolen cars there, and they were partying and stuff. And so the hotel manager, I guess, maybe contacted the FBI, and they came and they found all the kids there, and they searched through the cars, and they found a bunch of evidence in the car that was related to the murders. And so they knew they had the right people. But like you said, and they narrowed it down to Heber, this boy Richard, who was a minor, and then a guy named Doug Barlow. And but like you said, they didn't know which of these 3 killed which of the victims. And so you have to know that. You have to be able to charge someone specifically with murdering a specific person. But the state of Arizona went ahead and they convicted them on the, stolen car charges. And
because they could.
They had the evidence for that. So Heber and Doug, I guess they just pled guilty because they were just like, whatever. They got 10 years and Richard got 3 years because he was a minor.
And apparently people weren't even they could have easily gotten out in 3 to 5.
And they knew that. So they were just, happy that they couldn't tie them to the murder yet.
And during this time, we also learn that, Lillian, Mark's widow, she's getting more and more depressed and more depressed to the point where she kills herself. And I mean, it's devastating, utterly. These poor girls. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't remember what the time frame was from the time that Mark died to the time that Lillian committed suicide.
Seemed like pretty soon after.
I mean, awful. Truly, truly awful.
Yeah. And then also Isaac, we learned that Isaac, the one who testified against Ervil, he ended up killing himself
3 years after. Yeah. And so finally, we get Cynthia LeBaron. She calls up, she's in Mexico, and she and was it her sisters? Or the other women there?
They were part of the group that was in Phoenix. But somehow they didn't get arrested for anything or whatever. They went back to Mexico. But she and her sister they're getting really afraid, because things are getting really weird, and they're afraid that they're going to be killed. So they call the FBI.
Yeah. And they say, hey,
or the Utah
meet us in Laredo again.
Yeah, on the border.
On the border, because we're coming over and we're willing to talk, and we have the information that you need about the 4:00 murders. And so they were able to piece things together and figure out who killed who, so that way they convict the 3 men on these murders. And they also learned that it was Heber that killed Dan Jordan. So it wasn't Aaron. Aaron was there as the decoy, that Heber came in and Aaron, this is why Aaron was very smart. Aaron said, okay, well, I'll tell you when, we go on this deer hunt and stand by. And then Heber comes up, shoots Dan. And so
and takes off.
It's like, takes off.
Yeah. And Cynthia told the police that they had been planning that murder, the 4:00 murders, for like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
how were they going to get through that hit list if it's taken them 2 years per person?
I don't know, but they would,
or per 3 people.
They would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for Cynthia. So Cynthia, they gave Cynthia immunity, and they didn't like it, but it was kind of like, we don't have a choice. We have to.
And she's a victim. Just as
exactly.
Much. So they were all put on trial. They all guilty. Ervil LeBaron, which is, if your last name's LeBaron, don't name your kid Aaron.
Yeah. Well, he's still on the run, right? So after Dan's murder, he kind of disappeared, to try to distance himself from that. And then Cynthia had to go into witness protection after she testified.
But they did eventually find Aaron in 1995. Somehow he gets arrested in Mexico, and then he's again taken to the United States. Yeah. And he was convicted for the murders, and he got 45 years in prison, which seemed kind of short for everything that he did.
Yeah, because he was also involved in the conspiracy to commit other murders, but they probably just didn't have the evidence.
Yeah,
they did what they could.
I'm telling you this. Yeah, I mean, the guy was pretty smart. I mean, he really did. He kind of thought these things through a lot more.
Yeah. So if that's in 95, that's like almost 30 years ago.
Uh-oh.
So he's still
alive?
He's still in prison if he's still alive. Still got 15 more years, I guess.
Yeah. And so this whole thing takes place over 30 years. It's like a 30-year crime spree. And they've determined that 33 people have been killed that they know of, and 9 people have died by suicide.
Ugh.
Which is insane to think about.
Well, and did we talk about the guys were convicted of conspiracy to commit murder? Okay.
Yeah.
So they got, so the 2 adults, Heber and what's the other one? I've forgotten already.
Barlow.
Yeah, Doug Barlow. They each got life in prison, but that guy Richard, he took some sort of plea deal. He only got 5 years.
Yeah, that's weird. Is it because he was a minor?
Maybe because he was a minor when it happened. I don't know, but that was a good deal.
Yeah.
The others 2 should have tried to get a deal.
But the thing is that even Aaron and Heber and all of them, they're all victims of victims.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like everybody, you ask, like everybody's a victim. Everybody's, so all of these perpetrators were victims in some way, shape, or form. I'm not excusing their behavior. It's just... Oh, yeah.
No, I know they were all brainwashed. It's a cult.
Yeah. When you see this, it's like, what the... Because obviously Heber didn't have that kind of disposition to begin with. He was a sweet kid. That's what they said. So something happened between the time that he went down to Mexico and the time that he decided to start offing people. So it's just... The whole story is truly awful. And we were talking about this before we started recording that, I have a lot of frustration with these stories because I get so mad that we are like, I understand why they're being told. I understand why they're important. And, but it's this utter frustration of highlighting these really awful, terrible, terrible people. And, I don't know. I understand that Anna and Celia, they want to tell their story, and I want them to tell their story. And they are absolutely the heroes of this story. They and all the other people that testified and put themselves out there. I don't know. I just get so frustrated that people are allowed to get away with this stuff, that these just all of it. The whole story just angered me. It's past I don't know. I can't, maybe I'm not explaining.
Well, it's very disturbing. And like you said, how as disturbing as it is, and, if we don't talk about it and we don't put it out into the light and we don't warn people and we don't telegraph the message to people that, this isn't right. Maybe someone will see this and, they're in a similar situation and so I understand that. But what we're doing now with all of these shows is that we're basically using these people's trauma, mostly women, their trauma has become a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
And watching a 5-hour show like this, it's a lot. It's just kind of like, this is very overstimulating. And I don't even have any history of abuse or trauma or anything like that. I can't imagine if you're someone who is, like, how you could even watch this. But I mean, these shows are so popular, people can't get enough of it. And it's just like
especially women.
Yes. Women are like all the true crime and so it's easy to watch true crime if you've never been a victim of this type of crime. But I don't know. What is it like to be a victim and watch this? Do a lot of people who are victims watch it or not? I don't know. But it's just getting to be so many shows and so many things. And each one is more disturbing than the last, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I personally don't, I don't work with clients that have heavy duty trauma. Though, if you have heavy trauma, you really need to seek a specialist for that. Don't just see any regular old, not every therapist does that. So, but it is, people ask me all the time, why do women watch true crime? And my feeling has always been that it's because we are the victims of it. And it's almost this weird way of being able to like get one step ahead. Yeah. These things that happen that are out of your control and out of your power. Well, if you have some sense of a story, of what to do and how to handle it.
How to recognize someone who's going to be a perpetrator. Yeah.
And I do think that these stories are very helpful for that, to not only tell people stories, but also to give them some warning of these are the things, like, again, fundamentalist, some things that, might mean that this person is bad news. But I don't know what someone who's been through trauma really thinks about. I mean, I haven't asked anybody who's really been through trauma what this is like, that if this is enjoyable for them. And I know that there are other podcasters and other, filmmakers and such that really do want to start honoring the victims, right? We know the name of Ted Bundy and Manson and all that, but do we know the names of their victims? No, we don't. So I understand that there's this feeling of the popularity of true crime and trying to force people, sort of like push people to, let's stop saying the names of the killers and let's start focusing on the victims. But I think that there is something about, this is just my 2 cents about it. I think there's something about trying to get into the mind and understanding someone or something that you just can't fathom, because I think we're all, I don't know, when I'm watching it, I don't know about you, I'm constantly thinking like, how did we get here? And how did you think that? And who are your parents, Ervil?
Yeah. What happened to you?
What happened to you? Yeah. It's like that Oprah Winfrey book. What happened to you? Because that is, I don't think that's the question to ask.
I really, truly do not believe people are born evil. I just, people are made into, what they become by the people around them and so, and I don't know, maybe some people find some solace in watching these stories because maybe it makes them feel like they're not alone. That it could happen to anybody. It's not their fault. I don't know. There's a million different reasons. But I can only do so many of these cult type shows a month.
Yes. Yes. This one I found a lot darker than, like, something about the twin flames, because you could kind of almost, I mean, that was disturbing in its own ways.
But those were adults. They were doing it to themselves.
Yeah. I mean, there was that one, and then the, Mother Love, Cult of God. Like, you could kind of like get behind, but it's just the idea of these 20 children sleeping on a floor every night, working 12 hours a day.
Children being abused, children being traumatized. This is way worse. This is way worse, in my opinion. But anyway,
all in the name of one person who's desperate for power.
Well, and also I love too how they just keep changing who the prophet is. It's like, how many prophets? We went through like 10 prophets in this show, and it's like, I'm sorry, it can't just be that easy to just now I'm the prophet. No, you're the prophet. Don't people catch on and say, I don't know, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's why they indoctrinate their children, right? You can't, I mean, that's the whole thing about, they're wondering, like, why aren't we getting converts? And the thing is that the majority of the people that are following them are in this family. Yeah. Like, you have to give birth to your converts because those are the only people that are going to believe half the crap that you're saying.
That's why they have so many kids, because we need more converts, or not, or the original converts.
Yeah, the door to door isn't working, and so I don't know. I just hate that, that some of these people are getting so much camera time, I guess. I just, they're so evil. I know their stories need to be told, and Anna and Celia's story needs to be told. Absolutely. I'm just sick of the Ervils of the world. I just am. Well, I'm just so sick of you.
Luckily, most of the bad people in this are dead, or in prison for a long time. Okay.
Anywho, well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Good times.
It was interesting. I learned a lot. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Yeah. And I do. And I think I definitely think the ties to Christine and Christine's family is very, very interesting, and how woven in everybody is, this world.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Christine's, happy wedding. And I'm just kind of, now Christine has really just become such an enigma to me. And maybe all that happiness is how she deals with the stuff she was exposed to as a child. Maybe that's her coping mechanism, because clearly her mother described her time when she was married, which was Christine's childhood, as being hell. So I'm sorry, how could Christine not have received at least the stress and the chaos and the trauma, like, of, and say, well, I had a great childhood. My childhood was wonderful. And then now it's calling into question how I feel about Rex. Last week we were talking about how cute he was at the wedding and how sweet and whatever. Well, this is the man who made Annie's life hell, that she had to leave him. This is a man who, is the son of Rulon Allred. So, and I think he's quite a bit older than Christine's mom. I'm not. Oh, yeah. Clearly. Christine's mom said she was pregnant when she graduated from high school, which means he probably married her when she was under 18. And I don't know if that was even her first child. I mean, now this really rocked my world. I don't know what to think about these people anymore.
Well, it's interesting too, because, sorry. No, I'm choking to death. Oh my God, it's Ervil. He's coming from the grave.
You're on the
This is my
list.
blood atonement. Yes. This is my blood atonement. Brooke will be doing the show now by herself. When we saw the episode where Christine and Janelle went back to see her family, right? And she describes, I have such a great childhood. The two brothers that were there, they very much were like, no, really?
What are you talking about?
It's you're absolutely right. The more you see, like, everybody around you, Christine, seems to have the same story, and you're, got rose-colored glasses on. So.
Literally. All right. Well, thank you so much. If you're still listening, God bless you. Thank you.
You are a fan. And I have to say, because we've had so many technical problems and so much stuff because we were switching over platforms, and it was it was so heartwarming, as much as we were stressed out over here because producer Steve was going crazy, but it was so heartwarming to see how many people reached out and were like, "Where's the podcast?
Yeah,
and
are you okay?
Oh my gosh, are you okay?"
I didn't even think people cared that much.
Yeah, it was very sweet.
Nice.
So, everybody, we sorry that this all got disrupted. It was a series of mishaps. Some not our fault, some our fault. And yes. And so we're safely transitioned over to this new platform. So hopefully everything should be running smoothly from here on out. But we really do appreciate all of you who reached out and talked to us and told us and just cared.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you. We do appreciate our loyal listeners. And if you enjoy this podcast, then if you haven't already, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. And you don't even have to leave a review. Just the 5-star rating really helps because, the more people who review the show, the more it helps the algorithm or whatever it is so people can find the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever they're looking. And so if you have a minute to do that, we would really appreciate it. And please continue to give us feedback on social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok at PsychLegalPop. And you can also send us a email if you prefer that, psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We always love to get show ideas and know what people are into and want to hear. So, go ahead.
And if we don't respond, it does not mean everything is read and listened to. We absolutely go through everything. I think because there's two of us, there's always this thing of like, oh, I thought you were going to respond.
Yeah,
I'm responding.
Get a better system.
We got to get a better system. But I will say everything is read. We appreciate everything. So if for whatever reason we're not giving you a response, please, it doesn't mean that it wasn't read. I just want people to know that.
Yeah. And we'll get better at it. We're doing a lot of changes and exciting changes and trying to grow the podcast. And we're trying to get better. And, we're still on a high learning curve. We've been doing this for over a year and it's been more successful than we ever thought. And, but we're still learning. And so we are growing the podcast. So one more favor, my final favor. If you know someone in your life who you think would like this episode or any of our episodes, please send it to them. You can just forward it from the iPhone.
Your phone. Brooke does that all the time to me.
Yes.
She's always sending me podcasts.
Yes.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah. And, if they don't like it, then they can just delete the text. But, it's not a big buy-in, So if you can share it with somebody, at least one friend this week, we would appreciate that too. All right.
Awesome.
So we will, and just to let you know, we'll be back next week. When this comes out, you will have already heard the very last, the recap of the very last Sister Wives, Christine's Wedding Part 2. So next week on Tuesdays, we are going back to our Sister Wives Rewind. We are picking up on Season 6, Episode 1. So if you want to watch that before next Tuesday. And we also have all of the old episodes. We have Seasons 1 through 5. They're all in the archives. I think
in the feed.
And I'm trying to remember when we started doing it. I feel like it was around the end of 2022, like right after season 17 stopped. I think we started doing it.
Yeah.
So go check that out. And thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.